Trials has been and is very important for me. I spend so many hours during my daily life with trials, and it has given me bad moments, either because of injuries or defeats in competitions, but it has also given me joys and many experiences that have made me grow as a person.
He's up and across.
When I was 4, I started with trials bike at Dani Parramon's school in trial sport. I had a lot of fun there, but my parents told me that I got scared because I had a fail. Then I wanted to switch sport, and I started with gymnastics. One day I had also a fail, a big cry, and that was the moment that I wanted to switch sport, and I started doing again trials bike. That was back in 2012, and since then I never quit training. So 2015 was my first big World Championships. It was my first year as junior. And I remember I ended up in 4th place. I remember that it was really difficult for me to keep the focus and everything, because it was the first time I was in that kind of situation with pressure. So it was really difficult for me to do what I actually was able to do, riding my bike. So yeah, it was not a really good competition for me. Then at 2016, it was my year. It was all or nothing, and I was feeling much more prepared to do that competition. I managed to keep the focus and have like the flow state that you really riding super good, super hard, and super focused, and yeah, I could take that win. Eloi, Palau! So after winning that world title in junior category, I was feeling confident with my riding. But to be honest, when I started riding with the elite category, it was like a punch in the face, because I did nothing. I hadn't the level to do that type of sections and to be a competitive rider. And I remember that the Spanish team did not select me to compete to the Worlds. It was super hard for me to not compete there after winning that world title. In 2018, I started training a lot to be able to go to the World. I was finalist at the World Cups, and I really had the level to go to the Worlds. So yeah, I got selected, and I did 4th in the end at the World Championship.
Making light work of this section.
Very position struggle, had to jump back. He can get it first time, and he does. Look at that. That's the back wheel. And use the front wheel to get on top there.
Gravel, just so they can get some traction coming through.
Oh no!
He's broken the tape. A lot of people have been putting their money on Thomas or Domi, but Eloi's putting up to rear, and it's really quite tough.
It was my place to be 4th. I was not ready to become world champion back then. 2019, it was not a good year for me. I did 2 World Cups where I finished 11th and in 12th place. So I don't know what really happened, because I was really motivated, but the results weren't showing. And I remember after the Val di Sole World Cup that my life really changed in all kinds of ways.
Eso que acababa de explotar era una bomba de la Primera Guerra Mundial. Sergi lo sufrió, pero el que se llevó la peor parte fue su amigo Eloi Palau, profesional de mountain bike.
El viladrauenc Eloi Palau, campió mundial júnior de bike trial, troba bastant greu per
The following months were really tough for me, because I had the feeling that I wouldn't be able to ride a bike again. So riding trials bike was my whole life. That was what I do, my hobby, what I really enjoyed doing. And that was really the difficult part for me. Early 2020, I started trying to ride my trials bike again, and the fingers and the hand was feeling quite okay. But then the COVID and the lockdown came. The World Cups and the World Championships were cancelled. So in some kind of way, I tried to change my mentality and tried to train for the upcoming season and be more ready and more confident on the bike and try to be in a good shape.
Guanyador d'aquest Ciutat de Barcelona 2021, l'Eloi Palau.
In 2021, I was already feeling good on the bike. All my injuries were held up, and I really felt in a good shape riding my trials bike. So it was the first time I did a second position at the World Cup in Belfort. And that gave me a lot of motivation to keep training for the World Championships that were held in Vic. And it was a World Championships that I really wanted to do a good performance, because it was where everything started there with the trial sport family.
How do you feel today?
To be honest, I feel ready to fight, but nervous. Feeling nervous. I know I can do a good job in the final, but you never know, and it's easy to do mistakes. So we'll see.
It was hard to be third at the World Championships, but to be honest, I think it was a good thing for me, because that made me grow up as a person, because at that time I didn't know that I could win a title like that. Earlier this year, I started riding in a really good shape and in a good level, until I had some knee problems that it made me stop a little bit my trainings. At the World Cup in Vic, I was living until the fourth sections where I had a big crash. I could manage to finish the last section, although I had a really bad pain. And I ended up in third place, which was not too bad. But I knew, at that time I already knew that I had a big injury in my knee. Doctors didn't know what I had. I did a lot of tests and MRI scans. Yeah, the doctors couldn't see what was really the problem with my knee. After some weeks, doctors could find the problem and they could fix it in quite a short time. At some point, I had the feelings and the thoughts that I couldn't be able to ride in a good physical condition and without a good level. But with my uncle, we really focused on having a good training plan. In Abu Dhabi, I was feeling super ready mentally to compete and to do a good performance. Semifinals were really tough. It was 3 laps with a lot of heat, a lot of humidity, so it was the hardest competition I have ever done in my career. But finally, I ended up in 4th place, which was enough to ride the finals.
Next up, we have Eloi Palau. who is...
The final started really good. I was feeling super confident with my riding and with myself. So I did 260s, and then at the third section I did a 50, and Montalvo did 360s in a row. So he was 10 points ahead of us. At the first section I did a 60, and Montalvo and Borja did the same as me. So the possibilities to win the gold medal and the championship were open to each one of us.
Oh my God! Oh, look at that. It's just
After the last section, I knew that I could be world champion, but I also knew that Montalvo could do the 60 points and win the competition. But finally, he only managed to do 40 points, and my dream finally came true. I would love to thank to all the people that's been helping me and collaborating with me all these years to finally achieve the goal that I've been chasing for so many years. Sí, ¿no?